Welcome to another episode of the Career Keynotes podcast with Tincup and Gardiner, where William and Andrew chop it up with respected Silicon Valley talent acquisition and HR leaders to get the real story behind their career journeys, along with an insider's view of how companies engage with candidates. Let's face it, these days, finding the job, much less nailing down an interview, is not easy. This is a rare opportunity to learn firsthand what companies are looking for in a candidate and the best ways to engage with them. And now, here are William and Andrew.
Okay, hello again, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Career Keynotes. Hi, producer Bev. Audience, you'll notice William is not here. William's on assignment, but I'm sure he'll be back next week. And we're more than between producer Bev and me. I think we can handle it's I can handle it. Sorry, it is I. Trying to get the grammar right in case my mom's listening. We've only got 12 million subscribers. Okay, so listen, I know I sound like a broken record, you guys, but I am really excited about this week's guest. Don't, it's not funny. I am excited because, as you know, audience, most of the guests I know pretty well. And I know Andrew relatively well, but I don't know him well enough. And so I'm very interested to interview him and find out. He is good news is he is a well-respected, very experienced talent acquisition leader. And so he fits the bill and our target demo for guests. But I'm excited to learn more about him. So without any further ado, Andrew, welcome to the show.
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Of course, it's my pleasure. And I appreciate you making time. You're a busy guy. And I mean that sincerely. Everybody in talent acquisition is very busy. And so I'm grateful for you carving out the time. So listen, Andrew, I'm actually usually say I talk in effusivity, but I can't give a 2-minute narrative on you. So would you mind taking a couple of minutes and giving the audience some context around who you are and what you're all about?
Sure. I've been in talent acquisition for probably 25 years, started on the agency side, ended up in corporate around 2000, Siebel Systems. Worked there from 3,000 employees to 9,000 in 18 months, where I kind of cut my teeth on this hyper growth type tech companies. I eventually went to Microsoft, where I worked with them for a few years, helped them go through a period of hyper growth with their MSN or live division. Ended up going to SuccessFactors, which was a great, fun, fantastic company. Went through the IPO with them. Ended up at a company called SunGard after that, out of Philly, which was a tech company trying to be a tech company in the East Coast with a West Coast kind of Silicon Valley flair. I don't know if they ever really were able to do that, but they tried. Then went to a company called Groupon, which was just a massive on fire, hyperscale global company, which was a lot of fun. Ended up at GoDaddy after that. Helped them through a massive branding initiative, really to kind of take them from where they were to being kind of one of the best companies for women to work at, and really, really enjoyed my time there. And then now recently I've been at Elastic for about 3.5 years. Started with them when they were just over probably 500. We're now at about 2,300. We've been growing very, very fast, and it's been a huge hyper growth globalization kind of effort here as well. So it's kind of been a little bit about my experiences and the teams I've led and the companies I've worked for.
That is not insignificant and impressive. Forget Microsoft, but Groupon, GoDaddy, and Elastic. And that is massive growth, massive hiring, massive branding. And I'd forgotten about the Groupon. So, and you said something interesting. You started on the agency side. So I think I know what that means. And producer Bev, I'm sure you think you know what that means. But what does that mean to you when you say that? Because it means a lot to me. But what does it mean to you when you say I started on the agency side? If I don't know.
I'll take you back a little further. When I graduated from college, I got a job with Sony Electronics. It's not on my profile, but I got a job there. It was a dream job. 24 years old, out of college, company car. Sony Electronics back in the day was the Apple of our day today, right? what happened to them? Man, I love that company. I was in a development conversation a couple of years in with a VP of the West Coast. And he said, Andrew, what do you want when you're older? What do you want out of Sony? And I said, I want to make $100,000 a year by the time I'm 30. Like, that was this goal I had. It was probably stupid back then, but it was a goal that I had. And he looked at me and he said, Andrew, you're 8 promotions away from me and I make 105. And I said, well, I'm glad we're having my development conversation because we got to speed this up, right? He kind of laughed. And at the end of the conversation, a couple of weeks later, he gave me these 3 business cards of recruiters. And he said, you can have a career of a lifetime here, which back then people did. They had stayed at companies for 20 plus years, and Sony was no different. I took those 3 cards and I called those 3 recruiters and I met with all of them. And I walked out saying, I want to do that. One of them ended up giving me a job at a sales recruiting company. And I left Sony making great money, company car, for a 100% commission. My parents flipped. But within 9 months, I was, making over $100,000 a year, and it was what I thought I wanted. Eventually, after owning my own company and doing a couple of different stints in agencies, which was very painful as far as I was concerned, I ended up at Siebel Systems. I had met Tom, I had met their head of HR, I had met their head of recruiting, and I was doing some recruiting for them, and eventually came on to their team as a kind of a principal recruiter, senior recruiter, whatever, running their sales consulting recruiting. And then after just raising my hand over and over again, I ended up kind of almost running the whole thing, and was there for, 5+ years through massive growth and massive, decline. But that's kind of how I got into agency and then got into Siebel. But that was kind of my journey. It wasn't, it was pretty thoughtful and planned. I wanted to be a recruiter. I wanted to be the 3 guys I met.
That's remarkable because most everybody didn't do that. And that's a very interesting narrative. And I'm really glad I asked you and you did a deeper dive. Not too many people have talked to Tom Siebel, by the way. But so interesting, back to the 3 recruiters, were they agency recruiters? So when I hear agency, I think of executive search and
yeah, they were all agency. They were all agency recruiters. I think one was in tech, one was in, they called it search, but I don't think he was a search guy per se, not the types of people I work with in search. And the other person was doing sales recruiting. It's kind of the one I leaned in on, and I really was interested in helping companies find salespeople because that's what I was doing. I was in sales at Sony. And so I did that for a while and then got into software sales. And that's how I ended up kind of doing software sales recruiting at Siebel.
Yeah, please, producer Bev, jump in.
What about recruiting was so compelling that you walked out of these guys' offices going,
that was my question. Yeah.
I think I was attracted by the money at the time. I go back to that, right? One guy pulled up in a Porsche, one was in a BMW, one was in a Mercedes. So I think I was just excited, young and impressionable, right? But I think what I found out, later on was that I don't think I was ever a really good, I'm ADHD. I have 2 children that are ADHD, and I can see in them as well as in me that I wasn't a really good team player, right? Younger. I've learned how to become a better team player. Maybe somebody on my team might disagree with that, but I tried to be a better team player. But because I'm ADHD, I always I did things better on my own. And I found that I really excelled in recruiting because it was just me. I had to kill something every day to eat. And it was all up to me and what I did every day and how much I worked or how much I didn't work. The things I wanted to go after, my goals, my focus. It was an incredibly selfish job at the end of the day. Especially when you're in a bullpen with 10 people and, you got to be the best one every day, every week, every month, every quarter. And it was something that I really thrived in. If I look back at some of the sports that I did, I liked tennis, I liked diving, I liked mountain biking, I liked water skiing, I liked snow skiing. Not a lot of basketball, baseball, football, soccer in there. And I just realized looking back at my life as I got older and became a manager and a leader, I had these maybe you want to call them issues, but I was perfect for this type of a job, and I fell into it, and I loved it because of kind of who I was or who I am. So.
So thank you, producer Bev, because that was going to be my question. First of all, agency recruiting is not easy. Let's start there. So for you, the dough I get, like being attracted to the dough, but commission only from a pretty, to your point, slick job with a company car that you were very successful at, with a career path, track like that, you just follow this road and you're going to be very successful, to a Wild West agency Lone Ranger type mindset. A lot of people would shy away from that or be intimidated by it, money notwithstanding, or opportunity for money. So, and what's really interesting, and I want to wait to pivot to the candidate or job seeker side, but what's interesting is I've noticed that some of the more successful people like you, Andrew, have a strong agency background. Either they were at Aerotech or Ronstadt or somewhere, but somewhere where they had to your point, kill what they eat or eat what they kill, whatever that metaphor. Tape the phone to your hand. You can't sit down until you close a rec or whatever it was. So I like that, because that gives you, near as I can tell, the insight and the perspective to know, you eat your own dog food, what's expected of your recruiters. And I think that in large part makes you a successful talent acquisition leader. Now, that being said, what are some things that you learned early on as a recruiter that you think maybe have served you well as a leader?
Well, I don't think anything early on helped me as a leader. I went through some pretty amazing training programs that I don't think I appreciated at the time. So when I was with Sony, I went through amazing training programs, and they were fantastic. When I got to Microsoft, they put me in this, high-performing Harvard management training program, and it was a week-long program, and I think this was the biggest aha moment I ever had. They took a individual contributor, a manager, a director, and a VP within Microsoft, and they made each of us play each of those roles, and we had to build something every day, a product or a service or whatever, and we had to do it with those lenses on. And I think that was the most eye-opening, and the first time I kind of really understood what my recruiters go through as a recruiter, what my managers go through as a manager, what I have to be as a director, and eventually what I would have to become as a VP. And my biggest reminder of being a vice president was when I was at Groupon, and my boss came into a one-on-one I was having with a hiring manager who was complaining about a hire he had to make. And my VP looked at me after he walked out the door. My chief people officer looked at me as he walked out the door, and he said, "I thought I hired a VP." And it took me back. I was crushed. I'm like, "Skip, what do you mean?" And he said, "Andrew, you're talking to a hiring manager about a rec. You've got 8,000 recs to fill this year. You got a recruiter problem, a manager problem, or a director problem, but this should not be your problem." And it reinforced, like, what's my job, right? And you have to ask that question. When I joined Elastic, we had 8 people on the team, right? So I was playing manager, I was playing director, I was playing VP very little. And then we went to 30, and I was playing more director and VP. And now I've got a couple directors, we're hiring some more. We're going to be playing more VP role. And so you kind of got to go through those stages, and you got to know how to do that. A lot of times what I see, unfortunately, is that they take a great recruiter in a small company. They're going through hypergrowth. They put them in a director role because they ask for it. They deserve it, so to speak, but they have no idea how to play director, and no one's coaching them. No one's teaching them. No one's helping them even become a good manager. And so fortunately, very early on, I got this training at Sony, I got this training at Siebel. I took every class, by the way. I would raise my hand every time someone said, "Is you want to take this management training class?" I would be like, "Yeah." Another communications class? Sure, I'll take it. I thought that they were incredibly valuable, and I got to do that at Microsoft in some really amazing programs. And I think that that really helped me think about, at what stage do I need to play which role? And not too many people get that. Most people get it there by luck, or they have a really good boss who teaches them how to scale themselves. Especially when you're a hyperscale company and you're growing and you're growing and you're growing. you got to learn to know what roles to play. And that was pretty critical for me and in my development.
Andrew, I just have to restate a few of the things or call it out because I think it's that significant. First of all, I want to acknowledge you or honor you for your vulnerability about, hey, I'm ADHD. I am too, by the way. I'm sorry. What was your name again? I mean, that's me too. yeah, exactly. Well, that's me. And that's always been a handicap. And then your acknowledgement of, that was kind of pushed me or whatever, led me in a direction of individual contributor, which I think is very, authentic. And then, so that's very cool. Then this business of signing up for every management class or training class, you strike me as the kind of person that would always say, I want to learn more, or I want to be more, or let me try, or I'll do it. And that willingness to take on more and do more and be more. I mean, people say, you make your own luck, or the harder I try, the luckier I get. I think I don't think that was, I mean, luck is where preparation meets opportunity or whatever. So you have done very well, and rightly so. And by the way, congratulations on that. Producer Bev, back me up here, but wasn't the story as interesting, the story about Microsoft and you have to be this person? That sounds like Landmark Forum or EST or something like that. And those things, while a lot of people poo-poo it and ballyhoo it, those are some very powerful, there's some very key takeaways from experiences or classes or training like that, where it forces you to look through a different lens and be somebody else. And obviously it served you well in your conversion from an individual contributor to a VP. And I really appreciate your vulnerability there. All right. So you've been very successful. If I had William always likes to say, I have this magic wand, I'm going to give it to you. I don't even have a pen. But I'm remembering what you said. What would you say would you do anything differently as you look back over the trajectory of your pretty successful career? By the way, I forgot success factors. So GoDaddy, Groupon, success factors, Microsoft. It's like boom, 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 all in Siebel. Successively elastic, more responsibility, more growth, more opportunity, not by coincidence. So anyways, what advice would you have for because to your point, you're one of the few people that I've interviewed that it was almost by design.
No, a lot of luck, a lot of great people, a lot of people who took interest in me. I raised my hand a lot and said, I'll do it. At probably the detriment to my work-life balance or something. I wanted those experiences. When I was at Siebel, someone said, hey, who wants to rebuild the career site? And I was like, me. Someone said, hey, who wants to, we got to get rid of Icurion, if anyone remembers that product, and we're going to go to Taleo. Who wants to do that? I raised my hand. And then it was like, hey, who wants to take on the HR operations? Because the lady left who used to run it. I'll take on HR operations, right? Who wants to build the people analytics team at whatever? And I was like, I'll do that. I always wanted these experiences. And so I raised my hand a lot, and I enjoyed learning those new things. And I think that kind of helped me. So I did these side projects a lot. But to answer your question more directly on, would I go back and change anything? It's hard not to look back on all the mistakes you made and even dwell on them, right? You probably remember, that fight you got into when you were in high school and you regret that, and you probably want to 20 years later apologize to the person, right? Those weird things that happen, same things happen in business. But as I'm getting a little older and I look at my life, I've had a very unique experience in the last year, not because of COVID, but my mother-in-law and father-in-law both became terminally ill. And working in Silicon Valley, and working for the companies that I had, there would never have been an opportunity for me to move to Bend, Oregon. I was just telling Bev, like, that's out my front door. We moved out of Silicon Valley after 50 years, moved up here to be through, my in-laws' end of life. And, you think about all those mistakes you made along the way, and you go, but I'm here and I get to do this now. And it is incredibly amazing that my family and I get to do this. And all those mistakes I made, or all those successes that I had, all led to this opportunity now to be able to do this thing that is so incredible. for my wife and for her family and for my family. It's just, you can't really look back and say you change anything. I've had to learn from it, right? I'm trying not to make the same mistakes I made, but I don't regret any of the things that I did. I did them. I had those things, and they were lessons learned, hopefully, and they got me where I am today. And I'm super happy, and I love what I'm doing, and I'm still pretty charged and excited and energized about it. So I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't tell myself to do anything other than, buckle up. You're going to make mistakes. Own up to them, learn from them. And, that's probably what I would tell myself, but no regrets at all.
Andrew, what a lovely answer and I've asked that question before and I've gotten different answers, but that is the correct answer because, well, two things, and this is a show about you, not about me, but I happen to agree with everything that you just said, and not because we both have the same first name. Whatever you did, I'm a pretty big reader, especially to your point, as I've gotten older. And the Stoics, Ryan Holiday and Tim Ferriss, and Marcus Aurelius, and all these guys were having these same problems. Just what you said. And by the way, please accept my heartfelt. My father passed away a couple of 3 months ago, and it was just what you said. It was like there was no big bag of money under his hospice bed or stock options or diplomas. And so that was like, what am I doing? So that made me appreciate just what you said. And then I was talking to, I don't know if you know Jim D'Amico, but I met him through, and it isn't important, but he was in the second tank in the invasion of Kuwait for the Marines, opening up for the Army. And he said, Andrew, it's, as long as no one's shooting, and he's a head of TA like you, as long as no one's shooting at me, it's a good day. It's like, that's perspective. And I just like how you said, so Ryan Holiday wrote this book, The Obstacle is the Way. And his point is, that's how you learn. So everything you did, you learned from. And
I love the book, Extreme Ownership.
Oh, nice.
A lot of good takeaways from that, but it's the same thing. It's like, no one's dying on my team, right? But it's a good way of looking at it. No one's shooting at us.
Right. But just what you said about the regrets, because a lot of people will say, well, I would have done this, or I would have done that, I would have changed this. And you said, hey, I mean, other than learning, and maybe, your answer is much better than my narrative of your answer, but it was kind of like, hey, I probably would have been a little bit more honest or direct or whatever. I wouldn't have overreacted or would have, no. And that's easy to say, right? Because, as we get older, we become just exactly what you said. You start to realize how blessed we are. I mean, like, and what was my problem? You have 2 terminally ill in-laws. And I mean, sorry, what was my problem? That my dog's going to interrupt our podcast. He's still on the bone. Okay, so producer Bev, I've been kind of, we're about to pivot here. Do you have anything you want to ask Andrew? I have to imagine you do.
Well, I hate to poo all over this great positivity that we just were talking about.
Here we go.
I just had a question. Like, you talked about a lot of hypergrowth and in so many places where you worked. What was your biggest misstep in hypergrowth? So the thing that you want people to avoid going forward.
I would say that most recently, you got to read the room, you got to read the company, you got to be able to understand what's going on. I've worked in, for the most part, very hyper-constrained organizations. I'll never forget Lars Dalgaard. He would say, constraint breeds innovation. Right. And I don't know if he made that up or if that was a catchphrase back then. But I came from Microsoft, who was like, I had a $17 million budget. And I remember I got it down to 13 million and they got mad at me because you got to spend your budget. Right. But I made my numbers and we did this thing. Right. And Tom taught me about Tom Siebel about constraint and how you try to do more with less. And I would say here, I think I fell into the same kind of, I have that mentality from Groupon and from GoDaddy and from, like, it's almost PTSD. Almost every company, you're underfunded, you're under-resourced, you're under-constrained. And here I would say that the business, the CEO, the CFO, my boss, they kept telling me or asking me, like, what do you need? I'm like, we're fine. right? And we'll figure it out. We got the right resources. We got right. And I think just recently, as we went through this massive next wave of growth, we definitely went and asked. And I think that we asked for maybe more than we needed, and we got it. And I think that we're being super responsible about it. We haven't filled all of our positions. We're still letting things settle in. But I think that I've always just felt that my leaders have never asked me to do anything I couldn't do. But I've also thought that there was this massive responsibility. But I think that that came at the expense of, some of our employees, from, how much they work or how hard they work, or their work-life balance. And I think that things are becoming, more friendly out there in terms of, it doesn't have to be, working 80 hours a week. We should have the right resources and the right, people to do the jobs that we need them to do. And I think this is probably one of those times where I finally started to lean in a little bit more, and finally ask for what my team has been asking for, which was help. And I think that, that's important. Right now, things are going crazy. I don't think I've ever been in a situation like we're in right now. And I mean, we look back at 2000 or 2005 or some of the hyper growth times and periods where it was crazy. Now it seems to be really, 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 tough. We're working for it, and we shouldn't be working for being constrained. So that would be the one thing that I kind of look back on and think I've been doing that my whole career. I think that this was an opportunity, and we all kind of capitalized on it, which was good.
Dude, what a great answer. And I'm going to flip that a little bit. Thank you, Producer Bev. Let me just acknowledge you again. If you're telling me right now you're, blowing and going in probably the most meaningful, committed way throughout your storied career, which is pretty impressive, that speaks volumes. That means you're really busting your hump. So good for you. And I know a little bit based on some of our conversation that that's true. So, and it's not easy. It is not easy, even if you have all the resources. Okay, I got Producer Bev telling me we're halfway through. I knew it was going to go well. Okay, but just one more TA question, Andrew. As you look back over your career, what's something that you are the most proud of? The one accomplishment, or it doesn't need to be I hired 11 billion people with $50. It could be just one. What are you most proud of?
Yeah, so it's funny. You always think about what are those bullet points you take away from each job that you'd put on your resume. I haven't had a resume in probably 15 plus years, but you think about what's that bullet point. And most recently, the thing that I'm so excited about is this Someone Like Me program that we started at Elastic. It's kind of a branding diversity blog post. And what happened, I had a couple things happen to me. I had a really close friend of mine call me, and she said, Andrew, you're the only one I know that can help me with this question. I'm about to accept this job at this company, and I really don't know how to tell them that I'm a single mom, and I have 2 kids that I kind of need to take to school in the morning and pick up in the afternoons. And they're talking about me coming into the office at 9 and staying until 5. And how do I approach that? And it was really interesting because I didn't have an answer. I said, you just need to be honest and transparent and the like. And I was talking to an executive. He happened to be a Black gentleman. And I was trying to be very diversity sensitive. I don't know what you want to call it. But I said, hey, is there anybody in the company that you would like to talk to? We have a Black resource group or somebody like that. And he said, no, I'm not interested in that. But do you know anybody on the LGBTQ side who would talk to me? And I was like, interesting. And right after that happened, this third thing happened. I was leading a group of allies and female women at our company, Elastic. And we were talking about, kind of the different things that people go through. And this one woman said to this other woman, I was interviewing this woman, and she asked me what it was like to be a woman at the company. And I stopped everybody and I said, did everybody just hear what she said? I've never been asked what it's like to be a woman at a company. And so from those couple of experiences, I started talking to my team, and we had thought about developing a blog for someone like me. And it's not necessarily, if you're Black or Hispanic or LGBTQ or veteran, or it's It's about, I'm 60 years old and I work at Elastic. What's my experience being an older person in a tech company? It's, I'm a mom of 3 and I'm super busy, but what's it like to be a mom working at a company? What's it like to be a dad working at this company? So we created this Someone Like Me blog, and we've had a gazillion people write about what it's like to be in sales and engineering and marketing and whatever, and then who they are. Right? I'm a dad with 4 children, and like, I'm now living in this situation. I just told you my story. Like, what's it like for me here? And there are people that are going through this, right? We're the sandwich generation. I'm raising my children. I'm taking care of my parents, right? Like, there's a story there, and people want to understand what it's like to work at Elastic under whatever pressure that they're going to be in, and how does Elastic treat their employees. And so that has been one of the most, every time I read these, they're like super heart, tugging at the heartstrings, and you really understand that person's story. And there's a story for everyone, and it resonates to anybody. And I think that that's been one of the coolest things I've seen a company do, and my team put together. It's a big bullet point for me that I wish more companies could get away from being the corporatized, the sanitized. Like, you can go read, I'm not going to say the names of these companies, almost did, but some of these companies, big brand name companies, you read the blog posts and you're like, you get 5 sentences in and you delete, right? I believe if you can make someone laugh, you can make them cry, if you can bring them in, I think these stories do that in an amazing way. And I'm just so proud of the team and the people who've put these together. I love them, and how it morphed in from these couple stories that I had into this thing. So.
Wow. What a great,
I love that
I
so
was
much.
just going to say, producer, my face hurts from smiling. That whole, it
That's
was very heartwarming, and it was very authentic. And a lot of people are going to hear it and want to, sorry, go ahead, Beth.
it bridges the gap between the lofty offices and the rank and file associates too, because it is just another guy with a dog story or whatever. And I worked in big box retail for a long time, and there's such a huge disconnect between the corporate office and the once every 6 weeks walkthrough, and every day when you're out there shoveling poop. It's so different. So I love anything that bridges that.
I just love the authenticity. I love the way your face lit up when you were talking about it. And I love that, because you're right, Andrew. It's like, oh, dude, like, people write stuff. And let's not throw the whole brand and corporate, and I mean, we can throw sand at that all day long. But it's like, you hear, I've been on for whatever reason, a lot of Glassdoor contracts are renewing, and people are saying, how can we get our Glassdoor? And it's like, well, you have to, write good reviews. You get your employees to write. You got to have other reviews than the people that are like, and by the way, if you're going to worry, or if you're swayed by someone's opinion that was swayed by someone who didn't leave their name, it's anonymous, that's a bad sign. But listen, Glassdoor, I'm not throwing sand at Glassdoor. Here's my point.
Can I throw sand at Glassdoor?
Yeah, you don't know. Don't. I mean, we're going to take the high road.
We just dropped them. And
and you know what? Some of our clients do, and some of our clients don't. I don't judge. I just, I show up and tell the truth. But yours is Glassdoor with no Glassdoor.
That's true, right?
Yours is the truth. Like, I'll be reading that blog. Yeah. And by the way, a lot of companies can and should do that. And I love, the most thing I love most about it was, it's a little bit, necessity is the mother of invention. Pay no attention to that dog barking in the background. I'm going to go grab him, but before I do, so we're going to pivot, Andrew, and that was a great segment on the TA side. Now we're going to pivot, and we're going to focus on, you've interviewed thousands and thousands of people and hired thousands and thousands, some very big company names. What's some just overarching, not general, but blocking and tackling feedback, and not just encouragement and pom-poms and, Anthony Robbins, but what's some feedback or insights, not unlike what you just did on the TA side of the house, that you have for someone that's struggling in their job search? Because it is tough. And I'm going to be right back. Just answer. I'm just going to let the dog in.
Yeah, sure. I think for me, there's two things on the job search side. One, and I'm sure everyone knows this, and maybe they don't do it, but trying to find someone within the company you want to work for is really important, and trying to find an advocate and a referral or building relationships. I just saw this post on LinkedIn the other day. This girl was so cute. I wasn't even connected to her, but someone in my network liked it. And it was this girl who had these monitors up and Google was splattered all over it. And she said, I finally got my job at Google. 3 years ago, I walked by the Google building in New York and I told my mom, I'm going to work there someday. And the whole story was really about how her mom encouraged her to continue to find that dream and move in that direction. And 3 years later, she did it. And I think for people who are very interested in achieving that, and I remember at Microsoft bumping into people who, this was their dream to work there. And they moved from Iowa or they moved from India. They took the contractor role and they eventually got the job. I love those stories, and you don't hear much about those anymore, of people who are wed to those brands and wed to those experiences. And I think that they're important. But I do believe that if you have a network or a connection or can build or make connections within a company, that's key. On the resume side, look, we get 180,000 resumes a year. We end up with about 800 plus hires a year. That means we reject 170.
Okay, wait now. So we got to run that. So that's very powerful and helpful information. Can you just say those numbers again?
180,000 resumes. And we'll hire this year about 1,250, 1,250 people or something.
Which means
like
you
that.
rejected.
Just a second.
Okay, thanks, producer Bev. I'm an English guy, not a math guy. That's percentage-wise. Well, keep going. So you're on it.
We're going to reject a lot of people, right? And you need to have your resume stand out. And the one thing, and we pride ourselves in looking at all the resumes.
Let me pause. Sorry, I just got to interrupt. So when people say, "Hey, Andrew, our recruiters spend 4.5 seconds on average looking at a resume or profile," is that accurate?
I think that they can spend some more time.
Okay.
I don't think it's that long, but I mean, I think that they look at specific things, and that's what I'm trying to teach you.
Go ahead.
What are those specific things? I've taught my friends, like, what's the job description that you want to apply to? And they'll send it to me, and I'm like, okay, out of the gate, this is a very exciting opportunity. I get it, but you haven't done any of this. Like, what is it? Why would you apply to this, right? I'll be very direct and candid. And sometimes my friends will send me a job profile. It looks great, but their resume doesn't match what the job actually is. But they have been doing this job. And so if people really want that job, they got to spend the time on their resume to make it stand out. And there's a couple things that you can do. One is that you talk about what you did that's relative to what they want you to do, and then you tell the results that you did. Right? Like a sales rep, again, if you're looking for an enterprise sales job and you're not an enterprise sales guy, then you might have a challenge there. However, if the enterprise sales job here is looking at a quota of 1.3 million and you're actually doing 2.7 in your job today, that actually might be an easier job for you to get. But if you don't put that you're managing 2.7 million or that you close 3, I don't even know how people don't do that, like especially salespeople. 130% of quota. What does that mean? What was your quota? Like, just put it in, and you're more likely to be qualified in or out very quickly. And I think that that's important. And hopefully that company, we do, respond with, "Hey, you're not a fit," or "We want to talk to you." But the problem is when the recruiter has to squint and spend a little extra time understanding exactly what you did, it's easier to hit reject. And that's what I try to teach people, is to mirror that job description, to mirror what they're looking for. Don't lie, don't embellish, just put out there what you've done and what you can do for them. I will also say that for me, I've been spending more time on resumes. Since Black Lives Matter, I would say that while I've been an ally for many years and I'm very wed to diversity, and I love the diversity searches, and I really love helping build a diverse company. I have to take a lot of pride in that. I recently kind of came up with this saying, and I don't know who said it. I don't know how I picked it up or if I made it up. I can't really remember, but I was looking for some executives in our space that were diverse, and I couldn't find any. And I was really kind of crushed. Like, I'm pretty good at sourcing, and I couldn't find any. But what I did find was that they were in adjacent industries. And what I realized and started saying to my team and to the executives is diversity doesn't check boxes, right? If we're looking for someone with ABC skills and they need to come from a direct competitor, we're never going to find them, right? But if we need someone with ABC skills, we can find them in an adjacent industry, right? We can find them in an adjacent company. And one of the experiences or the examples I used was I went and I looked at all the diverse hires that Salesforce has made. And they've been doing a phenomenal job at this, by the way. Hats off to them. I think they've been doing great. And I saw this RVP, this amazing woman on the East Coast. And she came out of like ADP, and she had never really done software sales, but she was a great transferable fit into an RVP, AVP role at Salesforce, right? And I don't know if that's the exact example, but it was that they are looking for people with these skills in other industries that are not software to come and be that person. And they're going to teach them how to do the software selling, right? But they have all these other skills. And if you look at other companies that are doing this really, really well, you'll see that they're hiring from adjacent industries, and they get that diversity doesn't check all the boxes. And so those two things, for me, I think people are spending more time on resumes because of that. Not just if you're a diverse candidate, but if you really take your resume and curtail it to the job, and even title it like, elastic resume, you're going to probably know that, you put some time into it to make it kind of really aligned to what we're looking for. And I get that a lot. And I'll be honest, I was terrible at this back in the day. I was taught that if you got someone from Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Amazon, whatever, like they hired the best. And that's something of a problem in the industry. I mean, I've had a bunch of managers in my career say, I want someone with 4 years of Amazon. That's all they'll look at. Man, that's a narrow pool.
Yeah.
When I came to Elastic and I did an analysis of their talent pool, we don't hire in the Bay Area. We don't hire in Seattle. We don't have anybody from Google or Facebook or, right? Like we don't hire them. And the fact that they were able to find amazing people in Iowa, in Tennessee, in Atlanta, in Detroit, like you go and you look at the mix, we're, 800 technical people in 40 different countries. We find amazing, great technical talent. And they don't have to come from those companies. So it was another one of those eye-opening, wow, man, this is a great learning experience that now we have to actually focus on what does their resume say, because we're not looking at their education. We're not looking at where they came from. We're spending a little more time on their resume. So kind of hopefully wrap that all up. But
but what you did was you put a bow on, you answered the question and that's not a good metaphor, but you answered the question twice and you made a really good point. And just so I'm clear, the expression is diversity doesn't check the box. Is that accurate?
Yeah, diverse candidates don't check all the boxes.
Okay. So
diversity doesn't check a box, and you gotta,
You gave the strategy, and you also demonstrated your open-mindedness and your willingness to, which I think is part of, again, why I wanted you on the show, and really demonstrates audience that, this is this guy's trying to figure out a way to hire you. He's trying to look at all these different ways to do it. And how's everyone else doing it, right, wrong, or indifferent? And how can we be more creative and resourceful? And just your idea about the resume, because I think you're right. I know you're right that, and I say this, I would joke around at some point in the show. I guess I'm going to do it right now. Like being good at getting a job or being good at writing a resume, it's not something you want to be good at. Like you just said, I haven't written one. Yeah, well, you don't have to. And I love what you said about, hey, to Harvard, Stanford, Yale, Google, Facebook, Apple, like that's everyone's going there. So where else can we go? And that's just genius. But I think, to just kind of contradict myself, being better and more thoughtful and intentional about what you're applying for. And not necessarily do I have all the right skills or do I fit what they're looking for, but how can I position myself in a way that makes me attractive to them so that they'll look at my resume more closely? Or more to the point, don't make it so they don't look at my resume. So I have to kind of, just what you said, squint my eyes. That's worth the show. That's a timestamp right there. Producer Bab, did you want to ask him a question?
Everything you were saying about pulling from others, it sounds like the exact opposite of the job descriptions that are written. We want to hire a go-getter, 20 years old with 20 years experience kind of conundrum that happens.
We're not unrealistic like that. We have some unrealistic recs, like anybody. They're too narrowly focused, and we're always helping the hiring manager think. But sometimes, when you're building something, they need someone with those skills to go build it. And sometimes it is a very, very hard search, and there's 20 people who do that in the country. And it can be more limiting sometimes when the out of those 20 people in those 20 companies, they all reside in the Bay Area or in Seattle, and we don't hire there. So it can be challenging, and you got to be able to find people who, again, can do that differently, or we get exceptions to hire in those markets, but that's sometimes rare. But
when I first met Andrew, audience, and producer Bev, this is the first thing he said. He goes, "Yeah, we don't. Bay Area's too expensive," because he was recommended as this high, Google, Groupon. Were you in Chicago at Groupon? Is that where you were? Or were you just?
I traveled there a lot, but I've always been pretty much work from home.
Okay, sorry, that was.
And by the way, it's not because it's expensive. There's a lot of reasons why we don't hire in the Bay Area or in Seattle, and we're starting to a little bit more and more now. Mainly it's on the executive side, but where we need those skill sets, we will open it up. But it's not just that. It's that if you just go look on LinkedIn and the companies in the Bay Area, they stay for 18 months, right? And in Seattle, they stay for 20 months. And it's a dynamic of the business. There's so much excitement. There's so much opportunity. People don't stick around to help a company be successful. I have a saying on my LinkedIn profile. It says some people go to successful companies and some people go make companies successful. And I think so
timestamp. Write that down, producer Bev. No, dude, seriously, that's a nugget. That's as good, or then diversity doesn't just check the box. Hey, you just stumbled. You didn't stumble over something, but just to clarify, you didn't say just because it's more expensive, but you said it's competitive. That's where everyone's looking. It just kind of your resourcefulness and strategy. There was a bunch of reasons, but they all made sense. And I'm going, because you said to me, and that was the genius of it. It's like COVID didn't even impact you. You were already doing remote stuff. That's when I'm like, I got to get this guy in the show. Okay, and now we're really running out of time. So quickly, what are some things that are not off-putting, but that you don't recommend candidates or job seekers do, Andrew, that you think are, and not just certainly on the resume or the profile, tactically, strategically?
I would say that, when you watch American Idol, I think we all watch it for the one singer who's terrible, who thinks he's great, right?
Well, and the kid that, okay, but yes, I do.
Don't be that candidate.
I didn't know where you were going with that. I thought you were going to go with the heartstring. The kid taught himself how to. Go ahead.
I have people reach out to me all the time, right? Because of my title, because of what I do, because they see our earnings announcement, or they're following our stock, or they heard that we're a great company, and they're like, "Hey, I want to be a sales rep at your company," and they're working at Cisco selling food and meat and cups and plates and stuff, right? And you're like,
not Cisco, the food service company.
Yeah, the food service company.
SYSCO, audience.
And so it's like, wait a minute. I need someone with a few years of SaaS sales experience, right? I'm crushed to have to tell them that, like, I'm sure you get great sales skills, but you're just not qualified for the job. And they'll push it, but I'm doing $5 million. And it's like, not good or bad. I feel sorry that I can't help them. Like, we can only widen the aperture so much with the people that we're going to bring in. And that's just not transferable. And, out of a lot of people who apply, we unfortunately see a lot of that. And the people who reach out to me repeatedly, it's very similar. It's like, you don't have this experience. You're not in cloud. You're not in data. You're not even at, like a Salesforce or Workday where you have those sales skills selling to, like we will look at that type of a person, but you kind of need this
Andrew, you're
general
so
knowledge.
nice. And you, by the way, you're not contradicting, because you just got done saying apply for the right job. And now you're saying it in another way. Make sure the job that you're applying for, don't be that guy. I love that metaphor.
Sing that note. Yeah.
No, but it's a good point. Like, and by the way, I think that a lot of people, it's something I'm certainly familiar with, because all of us get hit up. I'm sure you far more than us, Andrew. But hey, my nephew's brother's nanny's husband is looking for a job. Could you talk to him? And then it's like, he shows you the thing. He goes, yeah, I want to be an astronaut. It's like, dude, you're selling Dixie cups or whatever it is. I'm making that up, but I know what you're saying. But applying to the wrong job, one of your bigger pain, let me say this differently. One of the problems that I see a lot when we're helping our clients, people like you, is they're getting too many resumes. It's not a sourcing problem, it's a quality problem, or people applying to the wrong job, and then they're just clogging up the ATS, and it's just creating more work, and you have to respond to everybody, and you want to respond to everybody, and you want to be fair, and you want to be polite. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense. And I think what people don't realize is, hey, when you go to Andrew's company, Elastic, and you apply to 10 different jobs, it automatically shoots a up that says this guy's not being intentional. I'm sorry, this person is not being intentional, and it self screens you out almost. So great feedback. Hey, here's kind of a curveball, but I love where you're going. And I'm sorry, producer Bev, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Well, it's kind of germane to a little further back in the conversation, but those people on American Idol, they're the ones who get up at weddings and sing terrible, and 4 people rush up to him afterwards and say, oh my God, that was beautiful. So that's how they get squeezed into a sparkly shirt standing in front of everybody.
Well, thank you. I didn't know you were also a television producer.
Yes,
that's very
yes.
helpful information. But I also think, to your point, Andrew, that people, we want to see, we want to know why that they're going to ring. Like when Simon's so mean, he's like, and some of those guys are pretty good. Like, I mean, and I get it. Hey, it's $1 million, but you're right, Andrew. We want to see the really good people. It's almost like a car crash. Just what you said. Yeah. It's like, oh God. Okay. So, Andrew, what are your thoughts on, because I happen to agree with everything you've said, and you've said stuff that I agree with that I've never heard before, which I love even more. And it's the reason we do the show, to make an impact and to educate people and pull back. Like, if you can't see that here's a guy that's keenly invested in trying to figure out a way to hire you in spite of everything, that in and of itself is worth a lot. But I think one of the things I always coach is be different. Like your comment, elastic resume. It just like, that's gonna stand out. So how can I stand out and be concerned? Well, how about if I just go right to the hiring manager and I bypass the ATS? What are your thoughts on people that try to buck the system and don't go through the proper channels of, do you recommend it? Do you care? Do you have an opinion?
No, I like the initiative. I like that, people are doing their homework, hopefully, and they're reaching out. Like I said, a lot of people reach out to me, and a lot of the executives daily forward me people who've reached out to them. And they're like, hey, take a look at this person, right? I mean, we really do. We try not to ignore anybody. We try to respond to everybody. It's hard when you get 180,000 resumes, but we're trying, right? We don't want to be a black hole. We believe that the experience starts when they apply, right? Even through a rejection, and we're going to reject 99.999% of them. So I don't know if I lost your question there, but
no, you did great. I was just going to say though, if you think you get hit up a lot now, just wait till the show airs. Oh my God. Well, because we are going to ask, how can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, okay, so here's what I tell people. And I respond. I have a little cut and paste, unfortunately, but I do respond to everyone who reaches out to me. And I'm like, hey, go apply to a role that meets your skill set and your passion. Let me know, and I will tag the recruiter in the system and let them know that you reached out to me personally. And I think that that's kind of cool. That
That's
people
very
who are
cool.
interested. And there are times when my cut and paste is like, dude, you work at Cisco. And we just don't have an opportunity for a food service guy. And I will be very, very candid about that as well. Like, and it's important to be, candid and to give them the closure. What I worry about is so many people don't respond on LinkedIn. Yeah. So many people don't respond to your applications. And I think it's crushing. I've never personally gone through an experience like that, but I have empathy for the people that do. I never applied for anything, but if you did apply, I could see like, wow, just waiting for someone to respond to right, going through an interview, and like how many days are you're so excited and you're on your second day and you're like, why haven't they called me back? Why haven't they responded? Why haven't, like, you got to think about that as something that's really, someone's really excited. And every day they hate you more and more, yeah, right? And it's like, man, we got to be faster about that, because they just, we're diminishing our brand. We're diminishing their experiencing. We're giving them a terrible like feeling. Like, I don't want to do that. So Andrew, I want to do things very, very quickly if we can.
You're a professional and you're a gentleman and you're saying all the right things. Okay, so listen, Deb's right. We're out of time. We're over time. So a couple of things. We do have this kind of gimmicky thing where we ask you for either your most embarrassing or awkward interview. And it could be an interview you did, not trying to, it's just, to kind of humanize the recruiting process. So if you have a story, you've already given us a lot of great stuff, so no pressure there. But if you have an anecdotal story that just kind of was a head scratcher for you, or that you'll never forget in your big body of work, which is pretty big, that would be great. Does anything come to mind?
The craziest interview experience I didn't have, but I was doing a search for, I think it was a very, very senior sales rep. This was almost 20 plus years ago at Siebel Systems. And they were incredibly fast. This was the head of sales, I think for the Americas or West Coast or something like that. And he would get back to me instantly on everything. And he had an interview that I was super excited about. And he went through the process. She went through the process. And for a couple hours, he didn't let me know how it went. And I'm like emailing him, what's up? I'm texting him, what's up? And he's like, can you talk? And I was like, this is interesting. So he calls me on my BlackBerry at the time. And he says, Andrew, we can't hire her, but can I get her personal number? And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, she did a basic instinct on me where she crossed her legs.
A basic instinct?
I love it. He tells me this story and I'm like, you can't have her number and you can't date her. And like, no, we'll just reject her and let her go. But that was the one that stood out over 20 plus years that I still remember.
That's a good one.
Nothing, we have a new winner.
Yeah, nothing as compared to timestamp. Basic instincted me. Okay, well,
just that's not in the advice column. That's in the outrageous.
He was like right
column.
Towards the end when she was about to ask, so do I get the job? And he was like, I was shocked. Well, so was I. I still remember that story very, very, very
well. I think all of our audience will appreciate that. Okay, so Andrew, you're a font of information. How can people reach you or get in touch with you if they want to contact you?
Oh, sure. LinkedIn's the best.
Spell your last name.
Carges, C-A-R-G.
Jess, you've been letting me mispronounce. That's embarrassing, dude. I've been calling you Carges. It's Carges. No, it's not. You didn't call me Andrew Gardiner. That's terrible. Cut. Stop recording. Oh God, it's too late. There's no editing. All right. Well, yes, you can tell that everything I said about Andrew is true. Andrew, this has been great. I can't thank you enough. Thank you, audience. Like and subscribe. Producer Bev, if you want to hold up the thing about comments and
any questions or requests, ask Tincup and Gardiner at gmail.com.
Thank you. We're having a hard time getting to all of them, so please be patient. with us. We're just taking them as they come in. We're not getting as many resumes as Elastic and Andrew, but we are getting some responses, and we're trying to respond in a timely manner. Andrew, honestly, thank you so much. You killed it. Everybody like and subscribe. We'll see you next week. Career Keynotes, Tincup and Gardiner, producer Bev, Andrew Carges. We're out. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching this episode of Career Keynotes. For more killer content, please like and subscribe to our channel. We welcome all comments and questions and are grateful for any input regarding future content, topics, and guests. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.